It was late. Very late. The kind of late where the whole world seems to be holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I was tucked into my bed, the blankets pulled up to my chin like a shield. My room was dark, except for the pale blue light of the moon spilling through the window. It painted long, creepy shadows on my walls. One shadow looked like a tall, thin man with claws. Another looked like a giant spider crawling up the side of my dresser. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to ignore them. I told myself they were just shadows, just my clothes on a chair and my basketball on the floor. But my heart still beat fast, like a drum in the quiet room. My phone was on my nightstand, face down. I always put it face down. I didn't want any bright lights waking me up, but then, it happened. A buzz, a loud, angry buzz that cut through the silence like a knife. It vibrated against the wood of the nightstand, making a rattling sound. My eyes snapped open. Who would be calling me now? It was past midnight. Maybe it was an emergency. Maybe something was wrong with my grandma. I reached a shaky hand out from under my warm blankets. The cold air of the room hit my skin, and I shivered. The buzzing stopped. Then it started again. Brrrs, brrrs. My fingers trembled as they closed around the cool plastic of my phone. I lifted the phone, my thumb hovering over the green button. The screen lit up, and my breath caught in my throat. I had to look twice to make sure I was seeing it right. The name on the screen was my own name. And below my name, my own phone number. How could that be? How could I be calling myself? My brain felt like it was doing somersaults. This had to be a mistake, a glitch in the system. Phones did weird things sometimes, right? But this felt different. This felt wrong. A cold feeling, colder than the air in my room, started in my stomach and spread through my whole body. I should have ignored it. I should have thrown the phone across the room and hidden under my covers until morning. That's what a smart person would have done. But I wasn't feeling very smart. I was feeling curious. A deep, dark curiosity pulled at me, stronger than my fear. What would happen if I answered? What would I hear? Maybe it was just static. Maybe it was a prank. My friends were always trying to scare me, but how could they call me from my own number? I took a deep, shaky breath. My thumb moved, almost on its own. It pressed the green button. I held the phone to my ear, my heart pounding against my ribs. Silence. "Hello?" I whispered. My own voice sounded small and shaky in the big, empty room. I waited. The line was completely silent, not even a hiss or a crackle. It was a dead silence, a heavy silence that felt like it was pressing in on me from all sides. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in my ear. I could hear the frantic thumping of my heart. I almost hung up. I almost decided it was a dumb prank, a weird glitch, and I was going to hang up and go back to sleep. But something made me wait. Something made me listen, harder, holding my breath. And then, I heard it. A faint sound. A breath. A slow, quiet breath on the other end of the line. It wasn't my breath. It was someone else's. And it sounded so close. It sounded like it was right next to my ear. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice a little louder this time. I tried to sound brave, but I think I just sounded more scared. The breathing stopped. The silence returned, thicker and more menacing than before. I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my temple. The shadows on the wall seemed to lean in closer, listening with me. The entire world was just me, my phone, and the suffocating quiet. "You shouldn't have answered," a voice said. I gasped. I dropped the phone onto my blankets. It landed with a soft thud. I stared at it, my eyes wide with terror. The voice. It was my voice. It was exactly my voice. Not just similar. Not just a good imitation. It was me. It sounded like a recording of me. But it wasn't. It was live. It was on the other end of the line. It was my voice. But it was cold. It was flat and empty, like it was coming from a deep, dark place where no light ever reached. My own voice had never sounded so terrifying. I picked the phone back up, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. I had to be dreaming. This had to be a nightmare. "Who are you?" I stammered into the phone. The voice on the other end chuckled. It was a dry, hollow sound. My chuckle, but wrong. All wrong. "You know who I am," it said, its tone low and menacing. "I'm the one who knows you shouldn't be alone in the dark. I'm the one who knows you should lock your door. You didn't lock your door tonight, did you?" I looked over at my bedroom door. The little lock on the knob was turned sideways. Unlocked. The line went dead. I was left alone in the silence, with my own voice echoing in my head. I didn't sleep at all that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that cold, empty version of my own voice. I saw my own phone number glowing on the screen. I kept staring at my unlocked door, expecting the handle to turn at any moment. When the sun finally came up, I felt a little better. The morning light chased the creepy shadows away. Everything looked normal. My clothes on the chair just looked like clothes. The basketball was just a basketball. The world seemed safe again. I told myself it was just a dream. A very vivid, very scary nightmare. Nothing more. All day at school, I tried to forget about it. I laughed with my friends. I talked about video games and homework. I tried to act like everything was normal. But the fear was always there, hiding in the back of my mind. It was a little knot of ice in my stomach. Every time my phone buzzed with a text message, I would jump. Every time I heard my own voice, I would flinch. My friends asked me if I was okay. They said I looked tired. I just nodded and said I didn't sleep well. I couldn't tell them the truth. They would think I was crazy. Maybe I was. That night, I did everything I could to feel safe. I turned on every light in my room. I even left the hall light on, letting a bright yellow stripe shine under my door. I checked the lock on my bedroom door not once, not twice, but 3 times. It was locked. Definitely locked. I put my phone on my nightstand, but this time I turned the ringer off. I put it on silent. No buzzing, no calls. I was in control. I wasn't going to let some stupid dream or prank scare me again. I crawled into bed, pulling the covers up to my nose, and stared at the ceiling, trying to force myself to relax. But you can't stop a phone call just by turning off the sound. Exactly at midnight, my screen lit up. The room was flooded with its bright, eerie glow. And there it was again. My name. My number. My heart leaped into my throat. Even without the sound, it was terrifying. It was like a ghost trying to get my attention. I wanted to ignore it. I really did. I squeezed my eyes shut and turned my back to the glowing screen, but I could still see the light through my eyelids. It pulsed. On, off, on, off. A silent scream for me to answer. My curiosity, that stupid, terrible curiosity, got the better of me again. I had to know. I answered the call. This time, I didn't say hello, I just listened. The silence was there, just like before, but it felt different. It felt heavier, like the air was thick with something I couldn't see. I waited, my ears straining. I heard the breath again, slow and steady. It sounded closer this time, like the person was not just on the phone, but in the room with me, standing right beside my bed. I pulled the blankets tighter, my knuckles white. My eyes darted around the brightly lit room, searching the corners, the closet, the space under my bed. There was nothing there, just me and the voice on the phone. "I see you turned the lights on," it whispered. My voice, cold and dead. That's smart, but lights can't keep everything out. Some things don't care about the light. My blood ran cold. It could see me? How could it see me? Was there a camera somewhere? Was someone watching me through my window? I scrambled out of bed, my heart racing, and ran to the window. I pulled the curtain back and peered out into the darkness. There was nothing but the empty street and the house across the way, all its lights off. No one was there. No one was watching. I went back to the phone, which was still lying on my bed. "What do you want?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice from shaking. The voice on the other end laughed its dry, hollow laugh. "I want you to be safe," it said. "That's why I'm calling. To warn you, you shouldn't have listened to that recording today. The one you don't remember making. It lets the silence in." I froze. A recording. I hadn't made any recordings. I checked my phone's voice memo app every day. It was always empty. The voice was lying. It was just trying to scare me. But after the call ended, I had to check. My hand was slick with sweat as I navigated to my phone's voice recorder. The app opened, and my stomach dropped. There was a new file there. It was titled Last Night. I hadn't made it. I knew I hadn't. My finger trembled as I pressed play. It was just static at first, a loud, hissing noise. But then, underneath the static, I could hear something else. A whisper. It was faint, and I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like the wind rustling through dead leaves. But it was a voice I had never heard before. And it was terrifying. The next day was a blur. Honestly, I felt like a zombie. I walked through the school hallways like I was in some kind of dream. My friends tried to talk to me, but, their voices sounded so far away. All I could hear was the faint, dry whisper from that recording. All I could feel was the cold dread that had taken root deep inside me. I was scared to be alone, but honestly, I was also scared to be around people. What if the voice called while I was with my friends? What would I do? I kept my phone in my pocket all day, but I could feel its weight, like a heavy stone just pulling me down. When I got home, the house felt different. It was empty. My parents were still at work, but it wasn't just empty. It felt full. The air was thick and heavy, like right before a big thunderstorm. It was hard to breathe. Every little sound made me jump. The creak of the floorboards upstairs, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the drip, drip, drip of a faucet somewhere. Each sound was a question. Each sound was a threat. I felt like I was being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone standing there, but there was never anyone. I tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV and blasted the volume. I tried to play a video game, but I just couldn't focus. The images on the screen kind of swam in front of my eyes. The heavy feeling in the air was getting worse. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I felt a strange pressure in my ears, like when you go up a mountain too fast. The house was silent, but it was a loud silence, a silence that buzzed with energy. I had the terrible feeling that I wasn't alone. Something was in the house with me. It was silent. It was waiting. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat on my bed with all the lights on, my back against the headboard. My baseball bat was on the pillow next to me. I wasn't going to be caught by surprise again. I stared at my phone, which lay on the nightstand. I was waiting for it. I knew it would come. And right at midnight, the screen lit up. My name. My number. This time, I didn't hesitate. I snatched the phone and answered it on the first silent pulse. I had to know. I had to face this. What do you want from me? I yelled into the phone before the voice could even speak. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The silence just stretched on, and for a second I honestly thought maybe I had scared it away. Maybe my yelling had actually worked, but then came the breath. Slower this time, deeper. It sounded tired. It sounded sad. Yelling won't help, my own voice said. But it was different. It wasn't as cold. It was filled with this strange kind of pity. It's too late for yelling. It's already here. It heard the recording. The silence let it in. You need to be quiet now. Very, very quiet. Don't make a sound. It's listening for you. What is listening? I whispered, my anger just melting away and turning back into pure, icy fear. What's here? The voice didn't answer right away. I heard this faint sound in the background on the other end of the line. A soft scratching sound, like fingernails dragging across wood. The sound was faint, but it made every hair on my body stand on end. Because it sounded familiar. It sounded like it was coming from inside my own house. You'll see, the voice on the phone finally said. Just don't look in the mirror. Whatever you do, don't look in the mirror. And then the line went dead. Don't look in the mirror. The words echoed in my head. Why? What was wrong with the mirror? I had a big mirror on my closet door. I looked at it every day. I slowly turned my head to look at it now. It just reflected my room back at me. Me, sitting on my bed, looking terrified. The bright lights, my baseball bat, everything looked normal. Maybe the voice was just trying to scare me again, playing another one of its twisted games, but the warning felt so specific, so urgent. A part of me, the part that was still screaming in terror, told me to listen. But another part of me, that foolish, curious part, couldn't resist. I had to know. I slowly got off the bed, my legs feeling like jelly. I took one step, then another, moving toward the closet door. My heart was a hammer against my ribs. I reached the mirror and stared at my own reflection. My face was pale, my eyes wide with fear. But there was nothing else there, just me. I let out a shaky breath of relief. It was just a trick, another stupid scare tactic. I leaned closer to the mirror, about to wipe away a smudge, when I saw it. Faint letters, written in the fog my breath had made on the glass. Behind you. I spun around so fast I almost fell over. My eyes scanned every inch of my brightly lit room. The closet, the corners, under the bed, nothing. There was nobody there. I was alone. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I looked back at the mirror. The foggy patch from my breath was gone. And the words were gone with it. Was I imagining things? Was my mind playing tricks on me because I was so tired and so scared? I had to be. There was no other explanation. But the image of those two words was burned into my brain. Behind you. The next day was the worst yet. The heavy feeling, the sense of being watched, followed me everywhere. It wasn't just in my house anymore. I felt it at school. I felt it on the bus. It was like a shadow had attached itself to me, a shadow that no one else could see. I started hearing things. A faint whisper in a crowded hallway. A scratching sound from an empty locker as I walked by. I was jumping at everything. I felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap at any moment. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. The world around me felt thin and unreal, like a dream I couldn't wake up from. I knew the call would come again. I dreaded the moment midnight would arrive. But I also knew I had to answer. The voice on the phone, as terrifying as it was, seemed to be the only thing that knew what was happening to me. It was my only source of information, my only warning system. That night, I didn't sit with a baseball bat. I knew that a piece of wood wouldn't help me against whatever this was. I just sat on my bed, wrapped in my blanket, and waited. The room felt colder than ever before, even with the lights on. The air was so heavy, it felt like I was underwater. At midnight, the screen lit up. My name, my number. I answered it before the first pulse of light had faded. I didn't say a word. I just listened. The breath on the other end was loud now. It was ragged and wet. It sounded like it was coming from right next to me. I could almost feel the hot air on my cheek. I squeezed my eyes shut, too afraid to look. It's so close now, my voice on the phone rasped. It was no longer a whisper. It was a strained, desperate cry. It's in your room. I can hear it. It's right there. Don't move. Don't even breathe. It's listening for the silence to break. Don't move. Don't even breathe. The words from the phone were a prison. I froze completely, every muscle in my body locked tight. I held my breath until my lungs burned. I was just too scared to open my eyes. The voice on the phone had said it was in the room with me. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know what it looked like. The only sound in the entire universe was the ragged, wet breathing coming through my phone. But it was so loud. It felt like it was coming from the phone, and from the corner of my room at the same time. Then, the breathing on the phone stopped. There was only silence. The dead, heavy silence that had started all of this. I stayed completely still, my eyes screwed shut. Hello? I thought I heard the voice on the phone say, but it was distant, faint, and then I heard another sound. A floorboard creaked. Right next to my bed. It was a slow, heavy creak, the sound of something taking a step. My heart stopped. It wasn't in the corner anymore. It was right next to me. I could feel a change in the air beside me. A cold spot. A pocket of icy air in my warm, bright room. It's not on the phone anymore. My voice whispered from the phone, sounding very, very far away. It's with you. It found you. The voice sounded defeated. It sounded like it had failed. I heard another creak, closer this time. I could smell something. A strange, musty smell, like old, damp earth and rotting leaves. It was a smell that didn't belong in my clean bedroom. I wanted to scream, but my throat was closed tight. I couldn't make a sound. I was trapped in my own body, a statue of pure fear. The call ended. The phone in my hand went dark. I was alone in the silence, but I knew I wasn't alone. The cold spot next to me grew larger. The musty smell grew stronger. I could feel it. I could feel a presence standing right beside my bed, looking down at me. The silence in the room was absolute. It was a waiting silence, a hungry silence. And in that final, terrible moment, I understood the warnings. It wasn't the noise you had to be afraid of. It was the silence in between. Because that's when it gets you. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen in terror. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. My eyes were still squeezed shut. I was too afraid to open them. I was afraid of what I would see standing beside my bed. The cold spot was still there. The musty smell still hung in the air. The silence was the worst part. It was so complete, so absolute. It felt like the whole world had disappeared, leaving just me and this thing in my room. A thing that had been drawn in by silence and whispers on a tape I never made. Slowly, so slowly, I started to feel my body again. My fingers, my toes. I took a tiny, shallow breath. Then another. The thing didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there. Waiting. What was it waiting for? Was it waiting for me to look at it? Was that the game? A horrifying thought entered my head. The voice on the phone. My voice. It had tried to warn me. It had called me from my own number. It knew what was happening. But where was it calling from? How could it call me and be somewhere else at the same time? My eyes were still closed, but an image flashed in my mind. The image from the mirror. Behind you. But when I had turned around, nothing was there. The voice on the phone had said it was in the room. It said it was close. What if it wasn't standing beside my bed? What if the message on the mirror was true in a way I didn't understand? What if it was behind me? Right behind me. I had been sitting with my back pressed against my headboard the whole time. What if it was on the other side? What if it was in the wall? Or what if it was even closer than that? A final, chilling realization washed over me. The calls. The voice that sounded exactly like mine. The warnings to be quiet. The feeling of not being alone. I finally understood. The voice wasn't calling to warn me about something else that was coming. It was calling to warn me about itself. The thing that was hunting me and the voice that was warning me were one and the same. It was a twisted, cruel game. And the final call, the one where it said it was in the room with me, that was just the last move. I slowly opened my eyes. The room was empty. The cold spot was gone. The smell was gone. But I knew. I knew I wasn't alone. Because the voice wasn't on the phone anymore. It was inside my head. And it was silent. Waiting.